Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a owl book bag, or an owl bag in general. And it's going to be based more off of like my owl stuffed animal, which I'll include a link below. Except it's going to be made larger, and it's going to have shoulder straps added and a lot more texture. And I'm going to be using Bernat blanket yarn, and one of them is going to be in moss, and it's going to have a real wide, dark, and light color range to it to give it the nice texture that the back side of an owl has. And this lighter yarn, which you could go with a cream color if you want. I'm going with a tan for the stomach area as a lighter yarn. I'm going to be using the 60 peg half gauge Cindy wood loom. You can use the Martha Stewart loom set up in that particular way, but with the circular loom it's going to be easy to show you how to set the loom up. So we're going to need to divide the loom in half, and we're going to need a series of stitch markers, and it's just going to be easier to do this. So going to divide the loom in half, and consider this your halfway point right here. So we know it's 60, so we need to go over 30. Okay, 30. There's our halfway mark. Now that's your halfway, which means this is your stomach and this is your tail. So because our head's going to be connected and it's going to be a flap that opens up, which is where our head is, we're going to work it just like we would a regular owl, realistic owl hat. We're combining. And so what we want to do is we want to count 15 in, and this is going to be for later. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, which is our halfway mark in between our half. So this is half of half. So these are 2 quarters right here that we've set up. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to start off with our tail, which is going to be on this back half, before we start adding in our front half. And so I'm going to show you how that's done. And we need to incorporate our shoulder straps, and our shoulder straps and tail are going to come first before we get to the front half. And because we want shoulder straps, we want to have it go somewhere in between our 15 peg. So let's make a marker. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, there's our halfway points. Okay, I'm going to put markers where I want my shoulder strap sections to be, and you're going to need 2 stitch holders because you're going to do a series of short rows to make a really long strand that's going to be your strap. And then you're going to put those on the stitch holder so that when you work to the top of the owl, you can attach those in there and work them in so they're actually knitted in and you don't have to sew them on. Okay, so we're going to work where our shoulder straps are going to be. Okay, you can either do 5 pegs or 7 pegs. I almost think 7 pegs are going to be nice. So I'm going to do 7 pegs, but you can do 5 pegs if you don't want that wide of straps. Okay. Now that we've done that, we can take those middle markers off. Okay, so we have our loom basically set up with our markers. Okay, so you should have a marker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your 5th peg, and then you should have another marker on your 11th peg, and then a next marker on your 20th peg, next marker on your 26th peg, next marker on your 30th and 31st peg, that marks your front half and back half. Hold on. And you should have a marker on your 45th and 46th peg, and then back to your starting point. So those should be your markers. This is going to be, these two markers are going to be for your head area, so you know where that's at. These markers over here are your shoulder strap areas, and this is your back half, and this is your front half. So you've basically, this is all going to be one piece. So you know this whole book bag is one piece. So it can get complicated. First things first, we're going to start off with our moss yarn. So what we're going to do is we're only going to E-wrap half, and we're going to do an E-wrap cast on. I want it loose. The reason why I want it loose is because it's the tail. So we're going to E-wrap cast on 30 pegs, and you'll know where those 30 pegs are. Stop. So there you know your 30 pegs. Now go ahead and push those down. And this is going to be a fairly big bag. Okay. Now you're going to E-wrap one, purl one, and you're going to do a rib stitch. So there's E-wrap one, purl one. You're going to do that all the way over. Because it's even, you should end on a purl. And then what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this rib stitch back and forth for 15 rows. So when you're going from right to left like we're doing right now, it's E-wrap one, purl one. When you're going left to right, it is purl one, E-wrap one. And you're going to do that for 15 rows. And that's going to be your tail. Okay, you've completed your first row. Now we're going to go back the direction we came, and you're going to purl one, E-wrap one all the way to the other side. So continue what we're doing with the rib stitch, the vertical rib stitch, for a total of 15 rows, and then we'll go from there, and I'll show you how to do the shoulder straps and then add the front in. So go ahead and pause the video and complete that much, and then we'll go from there. I just completed 15 rows of my vertical rib stitch, and now we are ready to start our shoulder straps. So what you'll want to do is find your shoulder strap markers, and you'll want to continue following the rib stitch pattern that you have until you get to the other side here. So it's going to be purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap. Okay, now you're going to work short rows in between these 7 pegs, and you're going to do this stitching to complete it, and you're going to do this for approximately 2 feet. So let's see, we ended on a purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl. Okay, we're going to start off with a purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl. what you're going to do now is you just purled that last one. You're going to E-wrap and do the opposite of what you did on that previous one. So it's going to be E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap. Because you ended up with an E-wrap, you're going to purl. Whatever you ended with, you're going to start with the opposite. So that was a purl E-wrap. And you're going to continue this pattern for 2 feet. And when you complete the 2 feet, you'll put the 7 pegs, the 7 stitches onto a stitch holder, and then move your original loops back up onto the pegs. And I'll show you how to do that. So go ahead and continue that process until you have 2 feet, and then put that on the stitch holder, and then we'll go from there. I've done my 2 feet worth of shoulder strap, and so now what I'm going to do is take those 7 stitches and put them onto my stitch holder. We're going to put this aside until we get to the top of the body. Close that up. Then we're going to snip that end, pull that through. So here's your shoulder strap. Now we're going to pull our original loops back up. And what you want to do is you want to go to the next strand, follow it back, and you want to pull that up. Pretty sure. Pull that back, that up there. It's hard to see on this yarn, but there it is. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy finding it, but if you can get it in the general vicinity, you'll be doing good. It's hard to see. So, you're basically wanting to get some loops up in the general area. You can always meet in the middle. You can go back here and pull these up too. Now that you got your original loops back up, or close to it, because I know it's hard to see with this yarn, you're going to reattach your yarn. And I'm going to do a slip knot. Okay, so we've got our original loops back, and we're going to put our slip stitch to add our yarn back on the first peg. And then you're going to just E-wrap it over and toss the bottom loops over. Then you're going to E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, and purl all the way over to the next stitch marker, and then you're going to repeat the very same thing we just did with the last shoulder strap. Okay, so here's your next shoulder strap. Okay, I have completed my shoulder straps, which I have attached to one stitch holder because it's only 14 stitches. And so now I'm going to start adding the front half of my owl. And I'm not going to do it separate. I'm going to do my technique on the half and half. So I'm going to add my chest color, which is a pale yellow. I changed my mind and decided to go for a pale yellow because the light color in here is a pale yellow. So I'm going to go in and tie on my yellow. Now, I'm fixing to just work the front half at this point. And I'm going to continue with the texture that I was doing here. But I'm going to just E-wrap first to cast it on. And what you'll need to keep in mind is that this section will need to be sewn down. Okay, so you're going to E-wrap all the way over to the other side. Alright. So we're going to work a section that has the wrap and turn technique in it that I use for socks, for the heels and the toes, and what I've worked with the back of the owl hat and the owl kind of thing, but we're working the bottom curve. So the section we're fixing to create is where things in the bag are going to sit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we'll E-wrap over. Now we're going to begin our wrap and turn section. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wrap and turn the next peg, which is going to overlap me, and the reason being is I want it to connect strongly here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. But instead of E-wrapping, I'm going to E-wrap first and purl all the way to the other side. And then I'm going to wrap and turn the crossover peg. Okay. So, while I'm E-wrapping and purling, I'll need to remember that I need to do the opposite from what I end on. And repeat the, whatever I end on, I repeat the opposite and alternating. And the reason we're doing this stitch on the bottom half is because it's a very tight stitch, and you want it to be tighter if you know the weight of things that you're going to put in the bag are going to be there. Okay, it's saying I'm ending with a purl, so I need to start with an E-wrap when I wrap and turn. So, there's my wrap and turn, and now I'm going to need to E-wrap, purl all the way across. Whatever I end with, the peg before. So this was my last wrap and turn right here. I'm going to stop here just before that last wrap and turn, because that's going to be my next wrap and turn. So whatever I end with, whether it's a purl or an E-wrap, I need to do the opposite. So I'm starting off with an E-wrap and doing a purl. Okay, I'm ending with an E-wrap, so I'll need to start with a purl next time. That's how you know what you want to start with. So wrap and turn the next peg, and I know I need to purl. Now you're going to continue this pattern of alternating whatever you finish off with after your wrap and turn, and you're going to keep doing this until you are down to 13 pegs with single loops in between wrap and turn pegs on both sides. So I'll show you all the way to the end of this one, and then I'll tell you to pause the video and get to that point, and then we will go from there. Now this pattern is going to have a lot more stitch work for texturing, but it's all going to be worth it. Okay, we're ending with an E-wrap, so we're going to need to start the purl, wrap and turn the next peg. So we're going to need to purl an E-wrap. Continue this back and forth with the wrap and turn on the next peg, alternating your E-wrap and purl so that you have a nice stitching like this. It's going to be tight and things aren't going to fall through it. So go ahead and pause the video and complete up to where you have 13 pegs with single loops in between wrap and turns, and then we'll go from there. Alright, now that we've got our 13 and I've finished on a purl, that doesn't really matter at this point, because we're now going to switch to the Loom Knit version of the crocodile stitch, because the entire chest area is going to be textured with feathers. So we're going to start off with our 5 plain rows that we do in between our feathered rows, as I'm going to call it, because that's what we're creating, feathers. So you're going to do 5 rows, adding back in your wrap and turns, and then we're going to start our crocodile stitch. So here's row 1. Actually, you're going to E-wrap. So you're going to E-wrap. This is row 1. Okay. This is row 2. Add that next wrap and turn back in. And this is row 3. Add the next wrap and turn back in. Okay. Row 4. And row 5. Add the next wrap and turn back in. Okay. Our next row is going to include the actual crocodile stitch. So we're going to do our feathers in the 4 pattern. So we're going to do short rows, 4 pegs for 4 rows. There's 2. 3, 4, ear wrap 3, 2, and 3, and then ear wrap 4 for 4 rows. So here's row 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we're going to bring our original loops back up, and I will tell you it's going to be a bit of a challenge with this yarn, but do the best you can. You're mostly wanting to get that fold back up. So if you've done my crocodile stitch before, you know to go to the next peg that wasn't worked, follow that ladder back to there, and you'll see there's your loop to pick up. Now make sure that your working yarn is out of the way there. And so you're going to pick that up and put it on the loop. I'm going to kind of lift that one up so I know that's the next wrap and turn. Okay, so I'm going to take the next 4 and repeat, and the next 4 and repeat, and the next 4 and repeat. Now you can't do another 4 because you only have 3 pegs over here when you include the wrap and turn. So what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this scale that we just did 1, 2, 3 more times, and you should have 3 pegs left over. Let's go ahead and pause the video and complete that much, and then we'll go from there. This is kind of complicated, but we can do it. Okay, there's our 4 scales. Now we have 3 that we need to E-wrap to add in our extra wrap and turn. And at this point you're going to do 5 rows adding in your wrap and turns. And on those scales you're going to toss both loops over, and I marked my last wrap and turn here. I was lifting it up. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to toss both loops over, and this is going to be your first row here. You're going to continue the process. You're going to do 4 more rows adding in wrap and turns, and so pause the video and complete those, and then we'll go from there, and I'll show you how to stagger your next row of scales so that it staggers its way up. Let's go ahead and pause the video and complete 4 more rows adding wrap and turns back in. Okay, I've completed my 5 rows, and now it's time to do the next section of scales. And what if you aren't sure, what you can do is you can follow the last line up, and there's the peg. Count 4 over, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I know I want to stagger it, so I'll go back 2. So there's 1, 2, and so theirs needs to be my next scale right there. Well, I ended here, which means I need to do 1 E-wrap, and then on the next 4 pegs start my first scale. So there's my 1 E-wrap. Now I'm going to start my scale here. So you're going to do the scale in sections of 4 all the way over, and you'll have some left over, I'm sure, and then you're going to E-wrap and add that extra wrap and turn back in. Just go ahead and pause the video and complete this row of scales, and then we'll go from there, and I'll show you how to finish up this section. And if we're lucky and it's long enough, we can save ourselves some sewing and attach the end to here, and that way we don't have to sew it up later. So go ahead and pause the video and do the scales, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we've completed that row, which had 1, 2, 3. Alright, we completed that row. It had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 scales on it, and actually lined up perfectly with the last wrap and turn. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finish adding in the wrap and turns, which I don't know is really going to be quite 5 rows, but you don't want to work it back all the way to the crossover section here. Do 5 more rows and it'll finish you up, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead and E-wrap 5 more rows, adding the last of your wrap and turns back in with each row you do, and then we'll go from there. I'm thinking we can connect those so that you don't have to sew up later and you don't have to worry about the seam coming undone. Okay, we've completed that, and we've added all our wraps and turns back in except for our overlaps, which are right here. Now we're going to do 1 more row to take our working yarn back to over here, and the reason why we're going to go ahead and do this row is because it's the scale row. So to get it set up, I go to my last one and I follow that column up, and there's my last one, and I count over 4. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back to 1, 2, and there is your starting one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, which means you're going to E-wrap 2 before you start your first scale. So E-wrap 2. Now on the next 4 pegs you're going to do your scale like you did down here. Now if you don't want to have to sew up later and you want to make sure that it's going to be solid, this is my suggestion. You're going to take your original cast on loops and you're going to do your best to line them up with the corresponding loops. So there's that one, that one. It's kind of like pulling the brim back on a hat, is what it is. And you're going to end up doing that all the way around. Now be careful that some of your loops may try to tighten up because you are yanking a little bit to get them back on. But when you start working it, you're going to find that you don't have to worry about sewing up. It's not going to get lost in that. Actually, it looks like we got a few too many extra here. So go in and find where I have my extra. In the meantime, you just go in and you get them lined up as best you can. Okay, there we go. So here is the bottom of your bag. It's like from here back. And so now when you go in to complete this back half section, you don't have to worry about sewing up the bottom. And that way it's actually woven in, and there's no question as to whether it'll come undone and you'll have an open spot showing up at the bottom of the bag. So this solves problems by doing this. So go ahead and pause the video and complete that row of scales from where I showed you, and then we shall go from there to start the main body of the owl bag. And I realize that we've done so much already to get to this point, but once I show you generally about how I want the body to go together, then it's doing that for a certain number of rows, and then we work on the head. And so the head's really not bad. If you've done the realistic owl hat before, if you made the owl, then you'll have an easy time with it. Okay, we'll pause the video and complete that, and then we will go to the actual body of the bag. Let's pick up our original color, which is our camo color, and we're going to E-wrap 1, and purl 1. You're going to purl those two together. E-wrap 1, purl those two together. E-wrap 1, and purl those two together. E-wrap 1, and purl those two together all the way to the starting point. Okay, we're at our starting point. Now, if you've watched my video, we are going to be doing a half and half color change, which means we're kind of working flat. And we know that when we've gone back, we meet up back here, and we meet up back here, we've done 2 rows. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take that yellow and cross it under the camo, and then you're going to E-wrap to the other side. And remember, when we're doing the half and half, that the same color always crosses under the other color. So you're going to E-wrap to the other side. We're going to stop there. And you'll notice that there's 2 there. Keep that in mind, that the 2 here is on this side. It's on the opposite side of your starting point. Because we're going to need to keep in mind when we're staggering our crocodile stitch. And it's a 2 peg difference on your stagger. Okay. Now let's take our green, and if you want to remember what you finished off with, look up under there. We finished off with an E-wrap, so we need to start with a purl. If you ever want to know what you're doing. So we're going to start off with a purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, all the way to the other side. and this will be our first row. Now that we've just met our colors up over here, we know that we are done with one row. Now, you're going to do 4 more rows, which means you're going to, we finished with an E-wrap, we're going to start with a purl. Purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap all the way over, then E-wrap all the way over on this side. Start with the opposite of what you ended with for your green side, which should be, I think it's going to be a purl. Yeah, it's going to be a purl, so you'll know you'll need to start with an E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl. So, and then you'll E-wrap back. You're going to do this for 4 more rows. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And this side just E-wraps, but doing the opposite of what you ended with, and E-wrap, purl, or purl, E-wrap, doing the opposite. You're going to do that for 4 more rows. So go ahead and pause the video and complete those 4 more rows, and then we'll go back and I'll show you how to do the crocodile stitch and how you're going to stagger that. And then that'll be starting on working on the body and how we can start with the base of the body and work to where the head is. Okay, I have completed my 5 rows. As you can see, I have my space in between my crocodile stitch from my last one. And you can see that I have been continuing that technique that I used on the straps. And while you may be sitting here thinking that if this is the bottom, that this is a little short, that's the trick. What we did with the huge heel section here, we're going to do at the top where the head is, and that's where it's going to even out. So it's going to have a chest that's going to go out, and when we're going to have a drawstring area to close it up. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a crocodile stitch row, and we're wanting to stagger it. So we actually have one that we need to E-wrap. Okay, so if we remember correctly, we had 2 over here. That was going to be our stagger. So we're going to start our crocodile stitch right here, because there's our last one. And if you ever want to know where you need to stagger, simply go up, simply follow that line up, which is that there, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's your 4, and so if you know that much, then you know you want to stagger it. So you go into and then count over 4. So we're actually going to do it right there. See, it's a good thing I went in and checked. That's how you check how you need to stagger. So again, you go down here and you find your last crocodile stitch, and you find the end here. You're going to follow that line up, and we know that it's that loop. Count over 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where the last crocodile stitch starter was. Then you're going to count back 2 from there, and then count over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we know this is our first crocodile stitch here. So this is our first scale, then our next scale, and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and do our 4 rows. 2, 3, 4. then E-wrap 3, two, 3, and then for 4 rows, 4 for 4. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, shove that down. Pull your working yarn forward. Go to your next unworked stitch, follow it back. There's your unworked loop there, so go ahead and pull it back onto the peg. Pull that one back. Okay. So we've done our first scale. Now we just continue to do the same thing on this side. Do all your scales on this side. And then you're going to do 5 rows like you had done previously. And then you're going to do another scale row. But instead of starting immediately, you're going to E-wrap 2 and then start there. And you're going to continue this doing this scale row, and you're only going to do it 3 more times. So you should have 6 rows of scales. So right now we have 3, and so we're going to do 3 more. So this one's going to be a row of scales, and then you're going to need to do it 2 more times, and that'll complete the front part of the body. So go ahead and pause the video and complete 3 more rows of scales, doing just like we've been doing with the in-between. You just continue the starting with the opposite of what you had finished with on each side. Okay, there's the main body, and there's the back. And now we're going to move on to finishing the top of the front of the bag. So, what we want to do is we want to actually create an I-cord, and we're going to set it up to where we don't have to attach a cord to tie the front together. So, we're going to take 2 pegs and we're going to do an I-cord for about 1.5 to 2 feet. And you're just going to E-wrap until you have 1.5 to 2 feet. Then you're going to cast off, and then you're going to bring the original loops back on. So I'm going to tell you to go ahead and pause the video and complete your cord until it's about 1.5 to 2 feet long, and cast it off, and then we'll go from there. And I'll show you how to open up holes so that you can string it through, and then you can tie it together. Okay, we've got our nice long cord here, and we want to bring our original loops back up. And we go to the next unworked peg, follow it back, and there is our first loop right there. And bring our next loop up this yarn. Okay, now we're going to tie our yellow back up to our greenish brown mix, our moss, down to the base. Okay, now we're going to E-wrap 2, then E-wrap 3, move 1 over, pull up that connecting ladder right through there. So you want to pull up the ladder through there and purl, and there you have a hole that you created. Then you're going to E-wrap. Then you E-wrap 2. Then you're going to pick that loop up, put it on the next peg, find your ladder, and you see that there is your connector right through there. You're going to pull that up and onto the peg, and then you're going to purl it and E-wrap. Then you're going to E-wrap 3. And then you're going to actually cast off 2. So we're going to E-wrap that one, and we're going to move it over, toss the bottom loop over, and E-wrap, and then move it over. Then E-wrap 3. This is your center point here, is how you'll know. See? It's in the center. And then you will want to move that one over, pull up your ladder, which is right there, purl 1, E-wrap those 2 together, and then E-wrap 2. Take the next loop, put it on the next peg, pull up the ladder, purl, E-wrap, E-wrap 2, and 3. Okay, now we've created our holes. See, there's a hole 1, a hole 2, then you've created a big hole here, and here, and here. And this hole's okay. We're going to be doing 5 more rows after we get done doing our other drawstring area here. So we do an I-cord here on the next 2, bring the original loops back. Then you're going to come in and you're going to do the green side all the way around. And then you're going to do 5 rows of just like what you've been doing. E-wrap, and then purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, and then do the opposite of what you end with and come back. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the I-cord, bring the original loops back like you did over here, reattach your yellow, only after you go back and do this row. So we'll go ahead and we'll go back and we'll do this row so that we're set up. So I finished with an E-wrap and I'm going to start with a purl. So we'll go ahead and do purl, E-wrap all the way over. And that way after we do our I-cord on the other side and bring our original loops back and reattach our yellow, we are ready to do our 5 rows like we've been doing in between our crocodile stitch row. And so we're going to do 5 more rows, and then you're going to just cast off your yellow section. That's pretty much it. So you'll cast off your yellow section and then you're done with the front. At that point, we're going to start working the flap section, which is going to be the head of the owl. And you'll see that the front half seems longer than the back half. We're fixing to even that out after we get done with this section. So once I get to the other side, go ahead and do your I-cord for the other side. Bring your original loops back and then do 5 more rows like you've been doing in between. So that way you have a space in between your drawstring area for the top. And then go ahead and cast off the yellow, just the front. So do 5 more rows after you do your string I-cord on this side. Bring original loops back, reattach your yellow, do 5 more rows like you've been doing, and then cast off just the yellow, and then we'll go from there and I'll show you how to start doing the head of the owl. Okay, we have completed our front half, and you can see that we've cast off and we've went ahead and strung our things through. And when you go to string it through, you want to send it through the back, and you'll notice there's a space just big enough to send it through the back so that it actually ends up being in the front when you actually pull it through that big center section. Okay, next we're going to be adding our straps back in to our bag, and then we're going to get started with the top. You'll need a second stitch holder, and you're going to go to your first 7 pegs where your markers were, and this is where you knew your markers were important. So what you want to do is keep up with which one's which. So this is our one that we're going to do first, which is going to be the left side. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to take it off. Actually, just go right to left. We're going to take that one off. Then the next one. And the next one. And you're going to do this for those 7 pegs, because you're just going to put them right back on. But you need them off temporarily to put the other ones on. So and one more. Okay, close it off. Then you're going to move this stitch holder up into here, and then you're going to start putting the stitches back. So there's the first one. It can go back on. Then the next one. And then the next one. And then what I'm going to do so that I can send the actual original stitch holder back down. I'm going to take the rest of those stitches off, reclasp it, shove that back down the hole, and then finish putting my loops back on. Now this section's tricky, I won't lie. But it means that the straps will be securely into the bag. They're not going to come undone. Okay, there's my 7 loops. And now we're going to put back on our 7 loops from the stitch holder. Okay. Now you're going to go in and you're going to repeat the same thing with the other one over here. And then once you're done with that, we'll go in and we'll start doing our heel section like we did at the base here. We're just going to be doing the stitch technique we've been doing with the knit one, E-wrap one, purl one, and then switch and purl one, E-wrap one. So go ahead and complete your other strap, and then we'll start working on the head and the flap, and then we'll go from there. Okay, and as you can see, our straps are attached. Also, when you're attaching, make sure that it's going to be flat, that it's the inside and not over, because if you do over, you attach your loom to it and then you'll have to cut, and then you don't want to cut, and then you'll ruin your whole bag. Just make sure it goes up under like that, and make sure that it's smooth all the way up and lines up that way. Okay, at this point we're going to go ahead and do a row to the other side to get everything down to 1 loop, and then we're going to start doing a wrap and turn kind of thing. Okay, now our straps are officially integrated back in, and from here we are going to do the purl E-wrap, purl E-wrap, purl E-wrap until just before the last peg. Then you're going to wrap and turn, and you should end with an E-wrap. So that means that this last one was going to be a purl, and so you're going to start with an E-wrap. And that's what you're going to need to keep up with when you do your wrap and turn section on this one, is whatever your previous peg to your wrap and turn, whatever you finished with, you do the opposite of. If you did a purl as the last one, you do an E-wrap. If you do an E-wrap as the last one, you do a purl. And that's the thing to keep in mind when we do the wrap and turn. So it's similar as down here with your wrap and turns, continuing with the alternating stitch. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap and turn until you're down to the same amount, which should be like 13, 14 pegs with single loops in between your wrap and turns. So go ahead and pause the video and complete your wrap and turn section up until you have anywhere from 13 to 14 single loops in between wrap and turns. Wrap and turns back in, and so as you can see, here's a series of wrap and turns, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 single loops, and then there's wrap and turns on the other side. So now we're going to go back the direction we came, so we're over here, And I finished with an E-wrap, so I'm going to start with a purl. E-wrap all the way over, add that wrap and turn back in, go back, add the wrap and turn back in, and you're going to continue to add the wrap and turns back in until you have no more wrap and turns. And then we're going to go from there and start actually working in the face area. And so we'll be done with the back of the head of the owl, and then we'll be working on the face. Okay, we have finished the actual back part of the head, and now we're going to start working on what I call the cheek area, or the side around the eye. And so what we're going to do is we're going to E-wrap over 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And right now we're just going to work between these 15 pegs. So go ahead and E-wrap back the 15 you just did. Then you're going to E-wrap over 14. So you're going to stop just before the end. Then we're going to skip that one, and then you're going to E-wrap 13. Now you're going to E-wrap 13. And then you're going to skip that one, and you're going to E-wrap 12. Now you're going to E-wrap 12. Skip one, E-wrap 11. E-wrap 11. Skip one, E-wrap 10. E-wrap 10. Skip one, E-wrap 9. Okay. Now what we're going to do is bring our original cast on loops back. Just move that out of the way. And so you're just going to bring your original cast on loops back, and you'll skip that first one because you only wrapped it once. So you find these loops, and if you've done the brim, this is pretty quick and easy. But you'll find your E-wrap cast on easily enough. And you just put those back on. 2 more. And more. Okay. Now you're going to toss the bottom loop over on all of those. Okay. And there's your ridge. Now what you're going to do is you're going to purl, E-wrap all the way to the other side. And then you're going to E-wrap on 15, which should meet you up over here, but don't overlap. And do exactly what we did over here, and bring your original loops back, and you should stop there. After you've done what you did over here, then you're going to do a purl E-wrap all the way back, And then we're going to start on our eye section, which means we're going to be switching colors. So go ahead and pause the video and complete that much. We've got our ridge on this side and this side, which is on the side of the face. Now we're going to do the eye area where the eyeball will be glued. So you'll want to switch colors. You're going to tie on your yellow. Don't cut your green, you can just pick it up and work to the other side. So what you want to do is you want to E-wrap 15. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. Go ahead and toss those over. Then you're going to increase by 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're not going to toss these loops over. If you do, you will connect the other half of the hat and then you will mess up everything you've done. So make sure these 7, you don't touch those bottom original ones. So, which should be easy to see because you're working with a contrasting color. Now what you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap all the way back to where you started with the yellow. Toss your loops over. And as you see, I didn't touch those 7 original loops on those pegs. And then that's going to be row 1. This is going to be row 2. And then this is row 3. Now you're going to do an internal decrease by half. So you're going to skip that first peg and you're just going to move every other peg over. I will tell you right now, this is the most tedious spot in my opinion through this whole thing, and there's no other way to do this eye area. It's one of the challenging areas for this pattern that took me the longest to figure out for the realistic owl hat, the owl itself, but it works, and it's how you get the look that you want. And one more. Now what you want to do is you want to E-wrap all the pegs with loops, which should be every other peg. Then you're going to toss both loops over on those decreased pegs. Now you can use a stitch holder if you'd like. I normally just like using my hook and pick up all these pegs and place them side by side with each other so we can continue on. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the opposite end of where your working yarn is. You're going to tighten those loops up. You see how much extra yarn you have? You don't want that extra yarn. Now we're going to do 3 more rows. 1, 2, 3. Internal decrease again by skipping that first one and the last one. And then you're going to do 3 more, and you're going to internal decrease 1 more time, and then you're going to do 3 more rows, and then you're going to be decreasing by 1 on each end until you're down to 1 stitch. Snip, pull through, and then do a row back, starting with a purl knit, purl E-rep all the way to the other side, and then you're going to repeat this. So I'll show you what I'm talking about one more time. So here's row 1. Here's row 2. And here's row 3. We're going to internal decrease again. So take that, skip that first loop, move the second one to the previous one. That all the way across. One more. Then you're going to ear up only the pegs with stitches on them. It should be every other peg. Toss the both loops over on the decreased pegs. Bring your loops together. Go to the opposite end of your working yarn, tighten up your loops. Now you're going to do 3 more rows, internal decrease again, then you're going to do 3 more rows, and you're going to decrease by 1 on each side, E-rep a row, decrease by 1 on each side, E-rep a row, until you're down to 1 peg with a stitch on it. Snip the end, pull it through. Pick up your green, do a purl E-rep all the way to the other side, then attach your yellow again and repeat what you just did on this side. The thing is, you won't have to worry about original stitches. You just go ahead and E-rep over, increase to 7 onto the empty pegs over here. Let's go ahead and pause the video and complete your eye section, and then we'll be working on the top section, which will complete the hat. So go ahead and do that much, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we've done our eyes, as you can see here, on both sides. And you see your ridge. And if you're thinking, geez, this is a little loose, you'll notice there's a section here, right here. When you're done, you'll sew that in like that. Gather it in a little bit and sew it in like that. And that way it won't be loose. As I said, the only part of this that's sewing is actually sewing the face together. After that, there ain't nothing else to sew. Okay, so we now need to start adding in for the ridge above the eyes, and I don't want to do really deep ridges, so I'm only going to go over 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what I'm going to keep in mind is these 7 pegs. Every time you decrease, every time you're working these 7 pegs, past your midpoint, which you should have a marker, you're E-wrapping. When you get to here, you do the purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap. So we're going to E-wrap over, stop, and then we're going to purl, E-wrap. All the way over, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And what we're going to do is, once you get your other side done, then you're going to E-wrap 7, do the back half like we're doing right now, E-wrap 7, and then you're going to decrease by 1 on each side of where those 7 that you've been working on, and you'll decrease it down to 6, and then you're going to do the row, E-wrap 6, do the back half like we're doing now, and then E-wrap 6, and then you'll E-wrap 6, do the back half, E-wrap 6, then you'll decrease again down to 5 pegs that are E-wrap on both sides, and you'll do this, E-wrap 5, and do the back half, E-wrap 5, so basically every other row you'll decrease on these front 7, and then when you get to this part here, when you get to just doing the back half, you're decreasing on every single row, and you'll decrease on every single row until you're down to 14 pegs. When you're down to 14 pegs, we're going to change over to a black, and we're going to do the beak. So repeat what we just did on this side over here. I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and then at this rate we're just going to go over to the other side and E-wrap 7 over here. Then we're going to E-wrap 7, come over here, E-wrap 7, then you're going to decrease. And at this point, after you decrease, then you'll do a row where you're not decreasing, then you'll do a row where you are just decreasing, and you're going to keep doing this. Every other row is a decrease on this until you're to your back half that you've been working on there. And once you've reached the back half, you're going to decrease every single row until you're down to 14 pegs with loops on them. And then at that point, we'll go from there and start to finish off the bag. Okay, we've gotten down to our 14 pegs, and I've changed to my black color because we're down to the beak. We're down to the last bit, and this is kind of what you should have. Little triangular looking thing. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap 2 rows, then you're going to decrease, and you're going to E-wrap 3 rows, and then you're going to decrease. So here's our first row. Here's our second row. Now we're going to decrease by 1 on each side. Now we're going to do 3 rows. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to decrease on both sides. And from here on out, every other row, you're going to decrease until you're down to 1. And then you're going to snip the end and pull through, and then I'll show you how to go about sewing up the face. Okay, we've got our owl bag in one piece. There isn't a whole bunch of pieces to sew together, but we do have a face to sew together. So, here is your beak. You sew the beak up first. Then once you get your beak sewn up, you're going to fold down your ridge. And you're going to sew your ridge up. And the ridge should connect over here. So corner to wedge, you'll see it. You see that little V. It's going to connect down here. And then you're just going to follow a straight line to your beak. After you've done that on both sides, then you're going to take your eyeball area and you're going to sew up under there, right up under the ridge you just made. And then you're going to sew down. So, and go sew there and then sew down. And kind of start to see the eyeball area. And then you're going to hot glue an eyeball in there, whatever size you want. And then to connect the back here to the bag itself, you're going to kind of gather it, not a whole lot, and just sew it in right there. And that will give you your flap, and then you're done. That's how you go about making an owl bag. And it's all in one piece, so you don't have a whole bunch of pieces to sew together. You just have to sew up the face and tuck your ends in like this, and that's it. You're done.